to this special edition of Go Vote Omaha, a candidate forum for mayor for the city of Omaha, presented by the League of Women Voters of Greater Omaha. I'm Jasmine Frazier, co-policy director at the League and your host for today's program. The LWB is a nonpartisan organization and does endorse political candidates or parties. Our purpose is to empower voters and defend democracy. Go Vote Omaha primarily focuses on policy issues, and as a result of our discussions, we hope you'll feel ready to make an informed decision during election time. The League and the candidates would like to send our condolences on the passing of Dr. Joe Stothard to Mayor Jean Stothard and her family. Our thoughts and prayers are with the Stothard family. The format is as follows. Each candidate will get a 1-minute opening statement followed by questions prepared by the League of Women Voters. Each candidate will answer every question and will have up to 90 seconds to answer. Following the questions, each candidate will have a 1-minute closing statement. We alternate speaking order throughout the forum. A timekeeper will keep time when they have 30 seconds of time remaining and when to stop speaking. Before the forum, we pick the candidates' names out of a hat to set the initial speaking order. I will introduce them now in that order. Joining us today are three of the candidates for mayor, Jasmine Harris, Kamara Snipes, and RJ Neary. Mark Gudrill was unable to join us tonight. We will start with a 1-minute opening statement by the candidates. Jasmine, take it away.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jasmine Harris. I am a public health expert and community organizer born and raised in North Omaha. I'm running for mayor of Omaha because I'm a firm believer that everyday people like you and I have the solutions to the challenges that our city is facing. I don't say that because I have dedicated my career to addressing these challenges, but because I have lived through and persevered through many of them in my own life. Too many of the same issues that I struggled with as a single Black mother over 20 years ago continue to hold this city back. I am a firm believer that our city leadership has failed to address these most basic of issues that continue to impact our family, friends, and neighbors. So I'm here to be that inclusive, proactive leader who's ready to lead on day one, addressing things like our continued response to COVID-19, ensuring that we have public safety, and making sure also that our city services are effectively and efficiently running once and for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Jasmine. Next, it's not Kamara, it's Kimara. Kimara, take it away.
Thank you. Yes, it is Kimara Snipes. Hello. Please bear with me. I've been running all day, still out delivering signs. My name is Kimara Snipes, and I am running to be Omaha's new mayor. I currently serve on the Omaha Public Schools Board, and I'm also president of the South Omaha Neighborhood Alliance. As an elected official and as an alliance leader, I have been on friendly terms with our current mayor, but friends are also honest with each other. And currently, our current mayor has not earned a third term in office. It's time for an Omaha where all people are cared about and not just select groups. It's time for one Omaha as opposed to the tale of three cities we have. So I'm hoping that you will join me, and I am encouraged and I am motivated to be Omaha's mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Kimara. RJ?
Thank you, Jasmine, and thank you to League of Women Voters for hosting this event tonight. And to add on to your sympathies for the mayor, I would send the sympathies to her family and to thank the mayor for her terms in office in both the city council and as mayor. I look forward to telling you about my path forward for Omaha tonight and discussing all the issues and getting into the details of my plans and answering any questions you might have. So thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, RJ. All right, let's get into the questions. We have 10 questions for our candidates tonight. The first question is, why are you running for this position? RJ?
Thank you. I'm running for this position because I have 40 years experience in leading teams, creating teams, and I can make a difference and hand off the city of Omaha in better shape than it is for the next generation. Omaha is not reaching its potential. We have great potential in Omaha, and it's not reaching its potential, and we're not facing the problems that we need to solve. That's why I'm running for mayor. And when I'm mayor, we'll solve those problems. And I have a path forward on my platform that shows you how we'll get there. Thank you.
Thank you, RJ. Jasmine, you're next.
Thank you. Like in my intro statement, I'm a firm believer that everyday people have the solutions to the challenges we're facing. After I graduated from UNMC with my master's in public health, I began to focus on the underlying conditions that impact the quality of life of Omaha residents. And as throughout that work, I became a proven leader of people. I've been organizing and mobilizing people to create change in our community and in our government. And at the heart of that, I've always said we have to do this together. So I am running to be that proactive leader that's going to take a preventative approach with my background in public health, my background in criminal justice reform and policy advocacy. I have the skill set and experience that this moment meets. And I am ready to be that partner on day one, working as hard as everyone to ensure that we are creating an Omaha that is going to work for and benefit everyone regardless of zip code. We're in a fight for our city. And we have to begin to embrace the diversity that we have today to build an Omaha for tomorrow. By 2050, Douglas County is going to be majority non-white people of color. And we have to ensure that Omaha is a welcoming and inclusive place that everyone feels safe in.
Thank you, Jasmine. Kimera?
Great question. Last year, there's a few reasons why. One of the first of them, last year when COVID began shutting the city down, I was the first person to create COVID-19 task forces in North and South Omaha because I fully recognize that communication from City Hall would not be what it needed to be for the communities that we all serve. The city, the people should not have to wait on leadership. Leadership gets out, they get ahead, and they get in front of different situations, just like the ones that we incurred last year. She showed that she was out of touch with the community when we were dealing with a social justice protest. We need a mayor, like I mentioned in the introduction, who cares about all people and not just select groups. We need someone who will communicate with us, someone who will listen to us, and someone who will lead and unite this city. Omaha is destined to be a 21st century city, but I keep saying that we keep practicing these same 20th century politics. It's time for real leadership and it's time for bold leadership. And my resume and my history have shown that I'm capable of that. And that's the reason why I'm running.
Thank you, Kimera. Next question. What is your professional/government experience and how does that make you the most qualified candidate to serve as mayor? Jasmine?
Thank you for that question, Jasmine. My background, again, is in public health, criminal justice reform, and policy advocacy. When I graduated from UNMC, my intentions all focused on community and how we can increase the well-being of people in our community. And I focused on substance use prevention. And in that work, I realized that policy advocacy is what moved the needle. And that is where I really got my start in government. I may not be an elected official, had an elected seat, but I've been working with elected officials and different people across this city in order to get policies passed to create a better Omaha. In my current role as the Director of Policy and Advocacy at a nonprofit called RISE, I am advocating for people who are incarcerated and coming home from incarceration so that way we can improve environments, whether they're still incarcerated or the community, so that they can actually succeed. So I'm currently working down in Lincoln at the legislature with elected officials to get policy passed. I am out in the community, listening and gathering information and also censoring people with lived experience because, again, I'm a firm believer that everyday people have the solutions to the challenges we're facing. So being a conduit in order to create that change, that's where my experience comes from working with government.
Thank you, Jasmine. Kimera, you're next.
Let's see. Currently, I work for a statewide nonprofit where our main focus is on increasing voter turnout in marginalized communities. I also have a history in workforce development where I work with businesses across the entire metropolitan statistical area, really surveying them for what their needs are. I also spent quite a bit of that time also developing our job seekers by instilling them with work ethic, skills training, and whatnot. I mentioned being elected to the Omaha Public School Board, which currently serves over 52,000 students. Over 100 languages are spoken in over 80 buildings. We also have a budget that is larger than the City of Omaha's general fund. I also serve as president of the South Omaha Neighborhood Alliance, where we act as an umbrella organization for all the neighborhood associations in South Omaha. And our mission is to really work on collaboration, communication, empowerment, and also promoting positive perceptions. Through that position is where I really got in touch with my elected officials. I say all the time, I learned that they put their pants on the same way I do, which is one leg at a time. It also is where we learned through One Omaha and the different trainings provided about the process of government, city government, local government, et cetera. So a really long history of working with government, being involved in government, and a lot of that from the grassroots, really community side.
Thank you, Kimara.
Thank you.
Next question. What would you do in the first 90 days? If elected?
RJ.
Yeah, Jasmine, I didn't get to
Oh,
answer that question.
Sorry, RJ, your answer matters. Go ahead, RJ.
And that was about, could you repeat the question for me, Jasmine?
Sure. What is your professional/government experience, and how does that make you the most qualified candidate to serve as mayor?
I'm the most qualified because I have the most experience that relates to running this city. And I'll start going back. I've served on a lot of civic boards, from the Judicial Resources Commission at the state of Nebraska, appointed by Governor Carey, to many nonprofits, including Omaha Habitat for Humanity and Catholic Charities and high school boards. And I've also served on the Omaha City Planning Board for 10 years, and I was chair of that a number of years. I'm proud of and I've also served on Omaha by Design Board and some other special appointments of North Downtown and the planning for the city of Omaha's Central Business District. And more recently, the transportation oriented development. I was proud of my years as chairman of the planning board, and that I innovated and restarted the physical tours around the city, many lessons, a lot of things that we changed on the planning board when I was there. And most importantly, we listened to neighbors. We did not pass anything without listening to neighbors. In my career, I've spent 40 years creating jobs, growing businesses, helping others grow business, and understand how to make that happen in big businesses and small businesses. And that's what I'll do as mayor.
Thank you, RJ. Next question. What would you do in the first 90 days if elected? RJ, you're first.
Thank you for that question. I have two unique things that and I'm going to build my team, but part of that team is going to be an equity officer that's going to look at everything that we do in City Hall as through the lens of equity, and make sure all our budgets, every decision and policy we make are equitable. And we're going to grade ourselves, and we're going to see how we do. And I'm also going to appoint a sustainability officer who's going to make sure that the city's growing their sustainability and climate action plan. And we're going to create a climate action plan within 12 months of me taking office. Other than that, it's building a team that sets the vision that we're going to build a better street, we're going to maintain things, and do it in a more sustainable and economical and efficient way. Thank you.
Thank you, RJ. All right, next is Jasmine.
Thank you. In the first 90 days, we have to ensure that we are continuing with our recovery and response to COVID-19. It's going to be June when the new mayor takes office, and we have to ensure that if we don't have enough vaccines and arms, that's what we're doing. So for me, that is continuing to monitor, test and track any COVID-19, especially when we're seeing the variants strains coming in, It's also ensuring that we are removing barriers for people to get the vaccination. What we're hearing right now is that a lot of people of color are deciding not to get the vaccine. So we need to create an educational campaign where people have the actual facts, partnering with our organizations like Charles Drew and One World as they are working to get the vaccines and the information out to our communities of color. And removing barriers means the registration process and transportation to where the vaccines are being offered. What I also want to do is sit down with each director of the departments and ensure that we're all on the same page as we are moving the vision for Omaha together. And what that looks like is ensuring that there is equality and equity across the board and bringing in someone who is an innovation officer. So that way we can ensure that each department is running effectively and efficiently. And that, again, we are looking at things from an equitable standpoint because we need equitable opportunities across everything that our city government is doing. So that's what I would do in my first 90 days.
Thank you, Jasmine. All right, next up is Kimara.
Yes. So outside of looking at every department there is and making sure that leadership is solid, I'm going to create a 21st century advisory panel. And this is going to consist of workforce development leaders, educational leaders, nonprofit leaders, just to really look at how we start bringing jobs back into our communities. I also want to create and lead for the first year an all civilian police review board. This is really going to be, the intent is to really look at how to intentionally restore public trust, which was, I say lost last year, but it wasn't 100% last year either. So really to continue that work. Also, the COVID-19 task forces that were started last year, definitely to make sure that it's supported by the city. When I started those task forces, I had zero resources. I'm lucky enough to have a network where there is someone with the resources to take that over, but I want to make sure that those are supported completely in both North and South Omaha. So that's what my first 90 days would consist of.
Thank you, Kimara.
Thank you.
Next question. What do you foresee the biggest challenge facing Omaha in the next 4 years, and how will you address it? First up, Jasmine.
Thank you. That is a really good question. There are so many challenges that Omaha is facing right now. So it's hard to just say, this is the one. We're going to have to take an approach that is going to be preventative and proactive, that addresses many of the intersectionalities that our problems share. So for one, public safety. We have to ensure that everyone across our city is feeling safe. And that means ensuring that our relationships with the community and police are addressed. That is preventing people from coming into contact with law enforcement if they don't have to. And then getting to the underlying conditions of what causes a lot of our strife is addressing those social determinants of health, or what I call social determinants of life. Those are things like safe and affordable housing, transportation across our city, and also you have to address jobs with living and equitable wages. And that's what we are really going to have to face as we move forward. So for me, public safety is number one. And what that looks like is an independent police oversight board that has authority to investigate and recommendations for misconduct. What that also looks like is ensuring that our behavioral health and wellness unit is staffed and resourced for the amount of calls that we get. So that way we can divert people from our criminal justice system. And it goes more in depth. And I don't have that much time to go in depth, but that's a really great question. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. All right. Next up, RJ.
Thank you for that question. I'll agree with Jasmine that there's a lot of issues. But first, we're going to get our basic services done correctly. We're going to fix our streets, get our garbage delivered. People as taxpayers should expect basic services to be delivered in a first-class manner. They pay first-class taxes. Why shouldn't they have first-class services? We still are going to be dealing with the pandemic. We have to address the pandemic, and we have to, and in my plan forward, I have a plan for COVID reset. And we're going to have a COVID czar to coordinate all the thing between public health at the university, at the county, and just keep rolling out the vaccine. As somebody said earlier, we're not sure this other strains aren't going to come at us yet, and we need to be prepared for that. In addition, I'm going to take 5% of the restaurant tax when I'm mayor and give that to the Visitors Bureau so that we can have it jumpstart a reset here, because the reset is going to look different than it's going to be the new normal. We're also, but the substandard housing and housing issues are a very top priority for me. In the first 4 years, we will address that. Thank you.
Thank you, RJ. Next, Kimera.
You know, I'm sitting here thinking about this question. I agree that there's a couple that pop out to me. It's definitely the crime and definitely housing. I live in a concentrated area of poverty. I have a friend of mine who just Thursday night was robbed in front of his house, which is pretty much across the street from my house. I've been talking with my captain about just the uptick in crime that I have seen since, again, COVID started just shutting the city down last year. So there has to be a hold on that. And we have to talk to our community leaders who are really out here and in touch with people so we can have an understanding. And it's not just crime, we have to address those root causes of the crime. And one of those is housing. I was talking with a friend of mine just yesterday, and we have we will have a shortage of almost 79,000 units of housing. And that's not talking about what's going to happen in 10 years, in 20 years, when our kids and our grandkids are out here, hopefully in Omaha, Nebraska, because they've stayed, when they're trying to find affordable housing. So it's a crisis right now. So I would definitely say the housing issue, and I know that crime had started going down for a while, but has definitely gone back up. So I agree, crime and the quality affordable housing issue or crisis that we're currently in. Thank you.
Thanks, Kimera. Next question. Globally, the coronavirus-19 pandemic has led to a dramatic loss in human life, unprecedented challenges to public health, and decimated jobs. For Omaha specifically, how do you think COVID has affected our city, and what will you do to meet those challenges? First up, Kimera.
And repeat the last part of the question, just to make sure I have it right.
Sure thing. For Omaha specifically, how do you think COVID has affected our city, and what will you do to meet those challenges?
Well, COVID has had a drastic effect on the city. We had a meeting last week, and I think the jobless numbers, and that's just the people who are reporting, they're not working, right? Not everyone. For just North Omaha alone, I want to say, she said the number was between 3,000 and 5,000. There's been an effect as far as job loss. There's been an effect as far as mental health too. Last year in my neighborhood, there were 2 different times I went outside and had people in the number of 80 plus just outside fighting. That's mental health right there, just being played out right in front of us. So it's had an effect as far as jobs, as far as mental health. We have to invest in this, but we have the tools here that we already need. We have an American Job Center, which receives funding from Congress, which is trickled down to the Department of Labor. We can be very intentional with this organization when we talk about creating jobs, but also filling jobs. When it comes to mental health, we have the people here. I put together last year a 4-part mental health series. We have people here that can help with these issues. It's just a matter of the mayor being that person to bring the people together, to have the discussions, to produce the ideas to solve these issues. The mayor doesn't do it by themselves. This is a united effort with many people involved. So we have to bring the right people to the table to have the discussions to solve these issues. But I would say that mental health, jobs were definitely at the top. It definitely had an effect on the economy as well with the losses that we had. So there's a lot that has to be done, and we have the people to do it. Thank you. I see your stop.
Thank you, Kimera. Next up, RJ.
Thank you, Jasmine, for that question. We were the last major city to have a mask mandate, and we had a lack of leadership in this issue, and the consequences of that were not only public health and strain on our healthcare workers and our healthcare system, but on our small businesses. And there's many restaurants that have gone out of business. There's many restaurant workers that have gone on to other careers or been out of work. and there's been many people hungry. I've watched the people line up at different food banks for blocks and blocks trying to get food to feed their family. So the pandemic for many people in Omaha has been devastating. I have in my plan, my path forward for a better Omaha, a specific plan for a COVID reset. And that plan includes having a COVID czar to make sure our reset is done as well as it can, and to coordinate between public health, the university, and vaccination centers, and meatpacking workers, and all our health centers, and make sure this is done right. I also will take 5% of the restaurant tax and jumpstart our restaurant business and entertainment business. We need to get people back out of the house. People are reluctant. So when I'm mayor, we will work at our reset, and nobody knows what the reset's going to look like for sure. Thank you.
Thank you, RJ. Jasmine, take it away.
Thank you so much. From the beginning, we were failed. Our public health and our medical experts should have been leading on this issue, and we should not have been playing party politics with lives of our Omaha residents. So for me, our continued response to COVID-19 and recovery is key. Like I said earlier, it is continuing to ensure that we are removing barriers for people to become vaccinated. The historical trauma that the medical and healthcare systems have had in communities of color, we need to address that and ensure that people are making informed decisions that will keep them safe. And that's working with our partners, again, in the community, One World, Charles Drew, our other organizations who are actually out in the field with people, because we need to remove all barriers at all costs. Our small businesses, we need to ensure that they are able to bounce back. They held so much of they bore so much of the brunt of what COVID-19 did, having to shutter doors, having to lay people off. We need to intentionally invest into our small businesses. And that looks like opening up a technical assistance and making sure that the CARES Act funding is funneled down to their businesses as well. We have rental assistance for people, we need business assistance. So taking some of that money and ensuring that it's getting there. But it's also preparing for the future. We need to reorient our emergency response plan. We're going to see something else happen, and we have to ensure that we're prepared and ready. Thank you.
Thank you, Jasmine. On to question number 6. What will you do to ensure a diverse viewpoint is involved in your decision-making process? RJ, you're up.
This is a very important issue to me, and it's an important issue for Omaha to reach its potential. As I said earlier, in my cabinet, I want an equity officer that grades us, because it's real easy to say, oh, we're going to have a diverse workforce and we embrace diversity, but it's a different thing to grade yourself. And I want the City Hall and my cabinet to reflect the diversity, the rich diversity and that Omaha has. And it's one of Omaha's strengths, and we need to build on that. And part of my campaign is to reconnect all parts of Omaha. Not part of my campaign, it's the overarching theme of my campaign. We've divided ourselves physically and socially, and I want to reconnect that. And it's going to start with what we have in City Hall and how I run my office. And I also am going to have community connections, which instead of having town hall meetings to tell you about potholes, we're going to have discussions around reconnecting our community from all parts of the city with each other. Thank you.
Thank you, RJ. Next up is Jasmine.
Thank you. Ensuring that everyday people have access to the government. That's how we're going to ensure that we have different perspectives when we're making decisions in Omaha. It's not going to be, this is Jasmine moving Omaha forward. This is all of us moving Omaha forward together. We're not going to get far if we continue to divide ourselves. We are only as strong as the weakest part, and we have to ensure that everyone is doing okay in order to be greater. So for me, what that looks like is ensuring that we're looking at how we are operating as a city. We have a diversity and equity officer, ensuring that that position is going through all of our policies, internal policies and procedures, again, from an equity lens. We have to ensure that we are advocating for our refugee and immigrant populations because they are here. Again, like I said earlier, Douglas County is going to be a majority non-white people of color by 2050. We also need to be partners with Douglas County Health Department. They declared racism as a public health crisis. And in order for us to create a culture in Omaha where businesses are going to want to come, where our young professionals and young people are going to want to stay, we have to begin addressing those underlying things like systemic racism. So being a partner with Douglas County Health Department and all the organizations and people working on this is what's going to help us create diversity and diverse of thoughts when it comes to the perspectives of what we want to do as a city.
Thank you, Jasmine. Kimera, you're up next.
Yes, technical difficulties here, so bear with me. But it's going to be the same thing that I've been doing. I am known as a uniter. I have always been known for making sure that people are advocated for of every group. As president of the South Omaha Neighborhood Alliance, one of my top goals has been making sure that the alliance reflects more of what South Omaha looks like than what it has. I plan to have a commission or a board, and not just by title. We have a lot of commissions and boards right now that have been created where people are just keeping the seat warm, but we will make sure that all people are represented. People know me as a uniter. That's the significance of my endorsements from Ben Nelson and Cara Eastman and Ann Ashford, not because of them individually, because of how different they are, but they all recognizing the ability in me to bring people together. As a member of the school board, representing the different over 100 languages spoken, the different groups that are represented within that. I have always made it my goal and my priority to advocate for all people. So I will just continue that at City Hall.
Thank you, Kimera.
Thank you.
Question number 7. Omaha has lost several large companies in the past few years. How will you attract companies to Omaha? Jasmine?
Thank you. I think it goes hand in hand with the comment that I just said for the last question. We have to create a culture in our city that is welcoming and inviting to everyone. Businesses aren't going to want to stay where they can't fill jobs because people are leaving at high rates because they don't feel welcomed. Back in 2000, I think it was 15, I was with the Urban League of Nebraska Young Professionals when the survey came out that African-American young professionals were 5 to 6 times less likely to recommend Omaha as a place to work, live, or play. And as we began to dig into that work and talk more and more, what came out of that was the culture within the city. People don't feel connected. People don't have ways to grow. But the underlying thing was, again, our race relations and how we continue to ensure that people feel welcomed here. So that have to be number one, that we create a culture where people feel welcomed. That way jobs will come. What we also need to then look at are jobs of the future. We need to ensure that we have a pulse on what is going to be our growth into the future, what those job industries are going to be, and we need to look at those. We have the high demand, high wage, high skilled jobs that are going unfilled right now. And we also need to create a pipeline from our schools all the way on up. So that way we have people who are ready to work in those positions. So we don't feel like we can't get anyone a job with a living wage. So there are so many things that we can do to attract talent, but we also need to make sure we have the talent here.
Thank you, Jasmine. Kimera, you're up next. Kimera, you're up next.
Okay, log me back out again. Can you repeat the question for me, please?
Sure thing. Omaha has lost several large companies in the past few years. How will you attract companies to Omaha?
Well, this is another collaboration thing. I mentioned earlier creating a 21st century advisory panel. This is part of that conversation, working with organizations like the Chamber, like the Young Professionals, like our workforce and education and labor leaders right here. We have what it takes here in Omaha, Nebraska to attract businesses. We're on I-80, we're on I-29, we're by the river. We have the people. Again, if people will move to Chicago or New York or anywhere else, they will move to Omaha, Nebraska. We have to find a way to tell our story and to utilize what we have to bring the businesses here. And again, we have it, just have to be intentional with it and make sure that the right people are at the table making the decisions to make that happen. I agree. We have all the H3, and that's that high skill, high wage, high demand. Heartland Workforce Solutions, which I mentioned earlier, which is the American Jobs Center. They work with businesses across this entire metropolitan statistical area. Take that, model that, and bring other businesses here so we can do the same thing.
Thank you, Kimra. RJ, you're up next.
Thank you for that question. I've spent 40 years in business bringing buyers and sellers, tenants and landlords together, and a lot of it's removing obstacles. That's what I'll do. It's also the net new jobs are mostly created in local businesses. And that's where we create a lot of opportunity for people. And we need more creative districts like I've been part of in the Millwork District and the New North Makerhood, the Creighton St. Joe Hospital, the Breakers Building, things like that, where we've reinvigorated neighborhoods. And it's created jobs for people just doing those buildings, and then created jobs within the businesses that thrive there. And so we have to have that in addition to what young people want to do, because we're losing our young people. They want a robust transportation system. We have such a low unemployment. We need better housing to attract people from regional cities, from across the country. And we need to embrace our universities. I met a woman the other day that came here from Senegal to go to UNO. She's now a vice president at Gallup, but she speaks multiple languages, and she's has kids in our public school system and and those are the kind of things we need to embrace. And when I'm mayor, we'll do that and create more of these creative districts and create jobs. Thank you.
Thank you, RJ. Question number 8. How do you plan to involve residents in the decision-making process in our town? Kimra, you're up next. You're up first.
Yay, I really love this question. So I come from neighborhood associations. So my plan is this, the city of Omaha has a community liaison. Why not take that person and have them also be responsible for convening our alliance leaders? Omaha has 6 neighborhood alliances, which act as umbrella organizations for the different neighborhood groups that are in Omaha, Nebraska. We can again be intentional with that as well and make sure that there is two-way communication happening there. But also we can really utilize our neighborhood associations along with One Omaha, which the city of Omaha invests in, to make sure that people are properly educated on process. One of the things that my old city councilman, Gary Gurdett, told me is people don't understand process. A lot of people don't even know that they can pick up the phone and call their city council person. So I'm also going to work with the different organizations to make sure that people are educated on what they can and cannot do. But a great way for people to get involved and learn more and stay involved is through their neighborhood associations. So I'm also going to be an advocate for neighborhood associations as well. I think I may have missed the second part of the question.
Oh, that's the entire question.
Okay.
Thank you, Kimra. All right, up next is RJ.
Thank you. I was the first president of the Leavenworth Neighborhood Association, and we figured it out how to grow it on our own. And that 30 or 40 years later, that's still a thriving neighborhood association. It's one of the huge mistakes we've made as a city is to not embrace our neighborhood association. You can't get a current list of the neighborhood association from this officers from the city of Omaha, and to hand out these little grants every few years with no criteria, and it doesn't make enough difference in the neighborhood associations. And I am really big on rebuilding a lot of our forgotten neighborhoods. And it's not difficult to do sometimes, but it takes energy, and where energy goes, action flows. And we can motivate people in these neighborhood associations by embracing them instead of removing obstacles so that they can organize, and help them organize and give them organizational support. But it takes somebody that's going to pay attention to it. One Omaha is a great organization, and they want to organize people and embrace and empower people. And the other thing we need to do is empower young people by appointing them to boards and let them help plan the future Omaha. If it's anything I've learned in this campaign, people have an interest.
Thank you, RJ. Jasmine, you're up next.
Thank you. Yes, great question. I plan to create an innovation and engagement hub. And what that means is, again, I'm a firm believer that everyday people have the solutions to the challenges our city is facing. From every department, people will have access in order to ensure their perspectives are heard and are included in the solutions. So that way, we're building an Omaha of the future together. Innovation and Engagement Hub will talk about how people play into the process and understand the processes of our government. That's one thing that I did create under the Urban League of Nebraska Young Professionals as their chair for civic engagement. We created the Black and Brown Legislative Day, which is about teaching people how our legislative and democratic processes work here in our city. So expanding on that idea and making it more acceptable and widely attainable for people is going to be a great opportunity. Putting things in like participatory budgeting, so people feel like they have a say in how our tax dollars are being spent. Those are things that I want to bring in with the Innovation and Engagement Hub. And yes, these current commissions and boards that we have, we need to ensure that people aren't meeting just to meet, but the actions are actually happening. And instead of having siloed boards, we're going to create boards that are diverse so that it does include young people, so that all perspectives are heard on the certain things that we want to ensure that are being handled. Thank you.
Thank you, Jasmine. Question number 9. What would you say is most important? Acting in response to the will of the people, or acting in a way city officials believe is the best course of action? Jasmine.
I think it's a delicate dance. You can't just say, well, I think this is best if you don't know what people are going through. And you can't just say, well, this is what people want. It may not be good for the gander. So I think it's a delicate response that includes more people at the table, ensuring that we have perspectives in order to create the best solutions that are going to impact our city. And that, again, it's coming through ensuring that our everyday people are being heard, that they are being considered, and making sure that we have leadership in place that is not going to keep people away. We need to get done with the us versus them kind of mentality that we have with government and our community members. I'm here to bring community to City Hall, and that way we can address the issues together.
Thank you, Jasmine. RJ, you're next.
Thank you. I agree with Jasmine. It's a delicate balance, but I have ideas to take the government to the people, to move our planning board meetings and possibly council meetings around the city, to have these community connections every other month. It's something that's been tried in other cities where we talk about issues from everything from roads to race, and we sit down at tables together and discuss it versus pronouncing from the podium the number of potholes that have been filled in the last month. And it's important to get that engagement. On the other hand, I believe that we study too many issues. We try to play politics too safe, and that when elected, people are electing you because they know you'll do the right thing. And elected officials, if they stick to the right thing versus the political thing, will be better off in the end. So when I'm mayor, I will make tough decisions when needed, but I'll be a listener and a collaborator, which I've done all my life. And you'll see that in my plans on my path forward for a better Omaha. Thank you.
Thank you, RJ. Kimara, you're up next.
I'm sorry, Jasmine, would you please repeat the question for me? I want to make sure I'm answering the right question.
Sure. What would you say is most important? Acting in response to the will of the people or acting in a way city officials believe is the best course of action?
Okay. I think that a city official should believe that listening is the best course of action. I believe that that's a great place for our alliances again to come in as platforms to really create that communication, because we're also gatekeepers and we make sure that people are communicating with us. I think that you listen. And I agree with RJ in a sense, you know, people elect you because they see in you the ability to do the right thing. So I think that as elected officials, we are no different than the average person. Again, we put our pants on the same way. We find opportunities and we also create opportunities to listen to people. And then we take what we have learned from people and we have our own maybe personal group of people that we bounce that back and forth with, but we utilize our own experiences based off of what we've heard to make the right decision. And the right decision is one that should benefit people, that should have empathy within it as well.
Thank you, Kimara. Last question of the night. If you received a $1 million grant to use for the city in any way you wanted, what would you do with it and why? RJ, you're first.
Now that's a stumper. I would improve our parks. And I have an idea for a park that does that, just listens, and it's a place of peace and a peace park where we can promote kindness and peace more than anything. And that's what I would use it for.
Okay, thank you, RJ. Jasmine, you're next.
Thank you. If I was given a $1 million grant day one, I'm going to start that participatory budgeting with community. I want them to start again being able to be a part of how we are going to move Omaha forward together. It's ensuring that we are listening to what they believe the issues are and then applying that in a proactive way. So I think it's really listening to the people. But if I'm taking into consideration what they're saying now, we need to address housing in some way. I know City Council just approved a tiny house village with Sienna Francis House. So looking more into those innovative ideas and how we can address our housing shortage. We're also talking about public safety. When I'm talking about the Behavioral Health and Wellness Unit, putting money into that. So that way, that is a program that is going to be able to actually have the funding it needs to address the underlying issues of people having crises with mental health and substance use and getting the resources and services they need versus being put in jail. So that's what I would do. Thank you.
Thank you, Jasmine. Kimara, you're next.
I'm torn with this. So I guess I would say, because I'm a root cause person, I'd say I would invest a portion of it into our libraries, because our libraries can also act as communications hubs, as places for resources and information. And they can also be a support to our American Job Center, which provides jobs. And then I would say that I would invest a portion of it into our housing crisis. I have to agree with that. It is a crisis and it's only going to get worse. I know that, you know, $500,000 is not enough to solve it, but if we're intentional with the money, we could at least work on finding ways to really push policy to solve that issue. So I would say our public libraries and our housing crisis.
Thank you, Kimara. Now we'll have closing statements. We're going to start with Jasmine.
Thank you so much, League of Women Voters and Jasmine, for the invite for this evening. It has been great to be able to talk more about my platform and what I will do as the next mayor of Omaha. Again, we're in a fight for our future, and we need to ensure that whoever is in office, which will be me, is ready to go from day one. in order to make sure that we are working together to create an Omaha that's going to benefit everyone, regardless of zip code. With my background in public health, criminal justice reform, and policy advocacy, I have the skills and experience to meet the moment. And that is to ensure that we are building a better community by addressing those underlying conditions that continue to hold us back. I'm ready to be your next mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Jasmine. RJ, you're next.
Thank you to the league for hosting this event tonight. Omaha is doing well by some measurements, but Omaha is not reaching its potential. We lack the leadership to face and solve the problems we face. We have too many residents working 2 to 3 jobs and many people spending more than 50% of their income on housing. It's time for change. We need leadership that looks to the future, gets Omaha ahead of issues and not behind on issues. If we lift up all parts of Omaha, we all win. If we face our problems and solve them, we all win. Together, we can make Omaha the city where all zip codes thrive. As Omaha, we're very proud of our city. Like a large family, we want every member to reach its potential. And let's keep these young kids in Omaha and grow it and make it the world-class city it can be.
Thank you, RJ.
I have to stop.
Kimara, you're next. Kimara, you're next. I think you're on mute.
I
There you go.
am on mute. Okay, thank you. So thank you to the League of Women Voters, for just all the work that you do in the community. I see it, as you know, and thank you very much, Jasmine, as well. You know, it's time for Omaha to be a 21st century city. I can't stress that enough. I've mentioned it before that as an alliance leader and as a school board member, I've been on friendly terms with our current mayor, but friends are honest with each other, and she just has not earned a 3rd term. This tale of 3 cities, because it's not 2, this tale of 3 cities is not fit for us. No more North Omaha, West Omaha, South Omaha. This is one city. This is one city, and we deserve to feel like that, look like that, act like that, and not just an act, be that. The city should not have to wait on leadership, and not just new leadership, but bold leadership. We need new leadership, and I'm capable of being that leadership. My history speaks for itself. I have a long history dedication to Omaha, Nebraska, and now that Jim Kavanaugh is no longer running, I'm the only elected official that stands between our current mayor and, like I said, a 3rd term in office, which has not been earned. It is my hope that you will go to my website, kimarasnipes.com, read more about me, reach out to me. My number is 402-212-6627. I'm happy to hear from you and your concerns, discuss them, and talk about ways that we can implement action to bring Omaha into the city that is.
Thank you. Thank you. This concludes our forum for the Omaha mayoral primary election. The League thanks all the candidates for participating. For the League of Women Voters of Greater Omaha, I'm Jasmine Frazier, reminding you to inform yourself about the issues and candidates. And on April 6th, go vote, Omaha.
And vote